I remember to unmute myself this time. Hey everyone, happy Saturday. Welcome to High Strangeness. How are you all doing tonight? Hey, let's see who's in here. Oh, I don't know why I'm out of focus. Maybe, hold on. Sometimes there we go. Okay. Hey, it's now. Thank you for the sub. Thank you for the sub, Toxic Hedgehog. Hey, Hex Hoddle Steak Hex. So nice to see you. Thank you again. I don't know. So Hex Huddle is going to be one of our mods. I thought I enabled it. I don't know if it's working yet, so I'm still figuring that out. But thank you. Nice to see you here. Hey, Andrew Kennedy, how's it going tonight? Are you guys ready to talk strangeness? We might have a guest coming in tonight. We might not. I'm not going to say who it is yet, just in case. Because I want it to be a surprise. Somebody in our own community happens to be an expert on something, so I thought I'd have him in. But it could be this week. We're not sure schedule wise, or it could be another time. But for now, I'm going to open up the lines. We're going to do open lines again. Anyone who wants to hop in, anyone who has anything to share, wants to tell you any of your stories, you guys are welcome to jump in. Yeah, and just if he ends up coming in, you'll kind of just be preemptive for him. I think that's what it's called, just in case. So hey, my online ghost. Hey, Mango Junkie. Run, Dream, Achieve. Hey, nice to see you guys. So thank you so much for coming in today. I did have some things I was thinking about this week, but let me go ahead and drop that StreamYard link in case anyone feels like popping into these open lines tonight. Speaking of open lines, that being coast to coast inspired, did anybody catch the Adapter Get Wrecked episode from earlier this week with Hex Noob? His Art Bell story, I loved. That was amazing. So that was so cool to meet somebody who had that connection to the late Art Bell and actually got to hold a piece of the Roswell crash. Wild. I loved his story. I hope one day he could come in and share more of that with us. Hey, Tin Top. Nice to see you guys tonight. So this week, I was pondering, what are these? Oh, I'm sorry. I've been in the sun all day and I can't think straight, and I'm trying to remember. Skinwalkers. Have you guys ever looked into skinwalkers? That, like I had heard the myths about the skinwalkers here and there. I never thought that much about it until there was this episode of Ancient Aliens. My mom was like, you have to watch this episode of Ancient Aliens. It is so freaky, the skinwalker thing. So I started watching. Okay, post a link. Cool. To the I'm gonna post the link if you want to hop in. Anyone who wants to hop into the show tonight, here's the link. So sorry, I'm getting sidetracked by the chat, but skinwalkers. So it's interesting because as we've talked about in past weeks, we talked about interdimensional beings hopping in and out, cryptids being one of those things, the possibility that aliens and UFOs are part of those things too. So when you actually look at Skinwalker Ranch is like the combination of all those things that we've talked about all in one spot, and even paranormal too. And it's to the point where it's not just like a speculation or conspiracy. Actually, like the government has gone in and investigated it. And there's actually a book I want to buy, and it's called Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. And I believe it's about the United States investigation into skinwalkers. And Skinwalker Ranch. So I'm wondering, maybe we could do like a book club. Can we all read it together and then discuss it sometime? A bug just flew over there and I'm talking about Skinwalker, so that just freaked me out. So Mango Junkie says amazing stuff. Oh, the Skinwalkers or Ancient Aliens? Oh, the staircases in the woods. That sounds familiar. What is the staircase in the woods? Oh, tweet out that I'm streaming. Oh, you know what? I completely forgot to do that. It's one of these dish shovel days for me tonight. So I'm already in here, so I'm not quite sure that if I'm afraid to leave. I don't know what goes on with StreamYard, what's going to happen with that, but and I'm actually using my phone as like I connected it to my computer as a webcam. So I am kind of stuck with that, the ability to tweet at the moment. But if you guys want to tweet out that it's happening tonight, I would so appreciate it. So what's up, guys? Anything specific you want to discuss tonight besides Skinwalkers? I don't have too much to say about Skinwalkers, but I was listening to a podcast. Thank you so much, Mango Junkie, for tweeting that out. I really appreciate that. So I was listening to this podcast and they were talking about this book, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. And one of these investigators was talking about some of the things he had seen at Skinwalker Ranch. And he told this story where they were doing this investigation and all of a sudden behind somebody he was talking to, he looks and something materializes. And it's not like, the typical, a UFO materialized or there was a chupacabra. No, he's like, I saw a piece of technology, I guess something unrecognizable to humans, but it was something that was clearly technology. He saw it materialize behind a person. And he's like, I kind of ignored it, thinking I was seeing things. And then I looked back and it was still there. And that's how I knew it was real. And then he's like, I looked back a third time and it was gone. But I'm just like imagining the concept of being on Skinwalker Ranch. There's all these things that are constantly happening and that are known to happen. Like you can't even just randomly wander onto Skinwalker Ranch because they have security there patrolling 24/7 because it is that the atmosphere is that volatile. There's always something happening there. And I think it's dangerous. People get hurt over there. And there's vortexes. They've set up cameras at certain sites where they know that there's like a portal or a vortex happening, and they've captured like things that look like they're walking out of a tunnel and then coming into our dimension and then coming out of it. And there's all this thought of why Skinwalker Ranch? Out of all the places that can happen, why is there so much phenomenon at Skinwalker Ranch? It's not just things at the sky. It's paranormal stuff. It's stuff coming out of portals. It's things materializing in front of us. And the belief is that was cursed Native American land. I can't remember the exact story that happened, but I think it was, land that was taken away from or stolen from the Native Americans that owned it in, I want to say, is it Utah? I'm not exactly sure. And they cursed the land. And I guess that cursing opened a portal between dimensions. I think the one story that struck me the most, besides that whole materializing technology thing that just blows my mind, was there's some mesas on the property. And somebody had witnessed a UFO come up to the mesa and the mesa open up. Like there was a door in the mesa and the UFO just went and parked in there and just sat. So those were the two things that jumped out at me the most. When you ask, if you ask me to, just name something about Skinwalker Ranch or what's the first thing that comes to mind, it's those two stories. Okay, Utah. So it is in Utah. There's something about that whole area. I've never been to that area. I've never seen a desert before. I've mostly stayed on the East Coast. So there's this strange draw to the desert, I think, for a lot of these things that happen, for a lot of these strange occurrences. And it could be, like we said, it could be cursed land. It could be the rituals, the religions that happen to be in those regions. Maybe they're linked to it. So I'm sure there's a ton of different theories you can get into, but there's something very specific about the desert. I think that the things that happen there don't really happen in other parts of the United States. And weird things happen everywhere, but there's a very specific desert vibe. And my sister had went out to some sort of hiking trip, some group hiking trip in the desert, somewhere in Arizona. And she had said, deserts are meh. Okay. Deserts might be meh, no trees. My sister's like, okay, it was cool, but it wasn't that pretty. But there was a vibe there. And she said something about, she had heard that there were vortexes, and that is actually, reason a lot of people like to go into the desert and do spiritual things. But she said the thing that really scared her and the thing that really grabbed her was when she looked up at the sky. It wasn't like looking up at the sky on the East Coast. She's like, there were constantly things moving in the sky. And it's not like, oh, okay, the sky is clear. I'm seeing a ton of satellites. I'm seeing a ton of, I don't know, space junk or whatever. She said like things would move at like 90-degree angles all of a sudden, and it's just constant. Like she's like, you can just watch the sky and you'll see things. And of course, it's not like, you know, like the Hudson Valley sightings where they were low, but just these little things in the sky. And she's like, and it was normal to everybody. Um, and she's like, meanwhile, she was horrified by it. And I told her, I said, you know, there are tours that you can go out into the desert. There's a certain type of night vision goggles. I don't know if they're calling them, if they call them third generation night vision goggles. And there's tours where they will take you to go look at the sky through these, because you end up seeing things that I guess would be disguised otherwise, that you wouldn't typically see otherwise. So so she was like, absolutely not. She's like, I'm freaked out enough looking at the sky. I am not going to go put on night vision goggles and go on one of those tours through the desert at night. And I've heard people say things about these tours saying like, once you put this on and you can see things that you wouldn't typically see, they're like, you see things that look like dog fights in the sky, like just not normal stuff that you wouldn't see, you know, with the naked eye. I would be brave enough to do it. I would love to go see that. But I don't know, maybe I'd chicken out once I got to the desert. Um, oh, the skies are amazing. Now, are you saying the skies are amazing because you see weird? Oh, there's the answer. Okay, because there's a ton of things shooting around. Okay, so you've seen those things shooting around. Like when she called me and told me that, we were both freaking out on the phone because, like I said, here on the East Coast, first of all, in the New York City area, you don't see a ton of stars. But when you do go see stars, they're stars. You know, they're not shooting around. They're not moving at 90-degree angles. They're pretty stationary. So I want to see these stars. I'm curious. So Tin Top says, there's a story from Native Americans near the Grand Canyon about living for years underground with the ant people when the sky was on fire. Oh, wow. I mean, and that comes back to a lot of that hidden history where they say that there's so much history in the world that's hidden for us for some reason and buried. There were these weird civilizations and civilizations that had interactions with certain creatures, and these stories that are, I guess, regarded as myth are very constant amongst a bunch of different civilizations that live in different regions. They're all corroborating each other. So that's why, you know, there is this belief that the history that we're being told, that we're being sold, is not the actual history. So like this, for example, there are ant people that they were living with when the sky was on fire. So I wonder what that correlates to, whether it was some sort of natural disaster. Were we going through some weird period of time in our climate? Which also reminds me, there's this story that says that there was this person in the early 20th century, I believe, that was exploring the Grand Canyon, and he found a cave. And when he went into this cave, he found Egyptian artifacts. And it wasn't like, oh, Egyptian artifacts that somebody's like, let's say, was hoarding that then, and somebody randomly came across somebody else's hoard. Like, no, there was evidence somehow that the Egyptians had made it over here and were, I don't know, in the cave systems around the Grand Canyon, living in there. I don't know. It's a wild story. And then he went and reported it. And they said that the government came in, took everything away, took everything out of there, and closed up those caves. And that they're still kind of, I don't want to say boarded up, but, you know, closed off with metal to this day. No one's allowed to go in. So it comes back to that whole thing of, why are certain parts of history, if you believe that this is legit, why are they being held back? What is the agenda behind that? It's I don't know. I think it's fun to think about. And you know, it seems extreme. Is this like, you know, oh, why would this happen? But there's been tons of stories like that throughout the United States. Like there was this story of this farmer in Ohio, I think it was around the 1920s, who found artifacts from Alexander the Great in Ohio. So there's just constant, and again, and I think it was actually Somebody went and looked into it and found out that these artifacts were legit. Nobody knows how it got there. But it comes back to that whole thing of, oh, is the history we were fed not actually correct? Was Alexander the Great actually on this side of the ocean? What's the true story here? And again, was it just a fluke? But there's way too many stories like this happening over and over throughout the world. So let me get back to these comments before I get off on that tangent. Oh yeah, so very believable when you see how vast the land is, especially with all the caves and canyons. Like I said, I think about that region a lot. And there's a really great podcast called, and I think it's a radio show out there, Desert Oracle. Has anyone ever listened to that? The Desert Oracle by Ken Lane. And he tells all these stories from the desert. So I just recently been getting into his work. And, I really like that kind of mystical vibe of what's happening in the desert and the vastness and just not knowing what's happening. But I think I would possibly be too creeped out to live there. Hey, Thomas Turner, nice to see you. Hey, GTO. Have we heard about the Utah monolith? It sounds vaguely familiar. Can you remind me what the Utah monolith is? Or would you like to come in and talk about it? No pressure, but I will drop it here if you want to hop in and tell us about the Utah monolith. There's a lot of things going on that are very odd in Utah. No offense to anybody that's in Utah. I'm sure Utah people are nice, but and I'm trying to figure out how I could say this. No offense if anybody's Mormon, but isn't Mormonism, from what I've heard, kind of a space religion? That there's this thought that the Book of Mormon was brought down from space and somebody found it. Was it in the wilderness of upstate New York? Was his name Joseph Smith? I don't know exactly, but I've heard it referred to as a space religion. So it's interesting that they, all those Mormon pioneers ended up in Utah, and that Utah has all this strangeness going on. Okay, so the Utah monolith is fairly recent. Okay, I can't click into that, but I'll have to pop into there later. So, okay, so Spanish priests and conquistadors stash stuff all over the Southwest. Okay, so you're saying that could potentially be a stash. Yeah, no, there are a ton of explanations for all of this. Okay, was it their stashes, their plunderings that they kind of hid throughout there, or is there evidence that something more was happening? And as time goes on, I think, at one point I was more of the mindset of, okay, it's a stash somewhere, there's a plausible explanation. I guess kind of like a Scully from the X-Files, but now as time goes on, I do start to wonder what we're not being told. So you have people talking about overpopulation, yet the land is so undiscovered. It's kind of also like the ocean too. So there's so much we don't know about the world and the land and our cave systems in it, and there's so much we don't know about the ocean. What is the statistic about the ocean that there's only it's only been, what is it, 15%? No, or is it 5% explored? Something really insane that we really don't even know what's in our oceans. And what I find interesting about that is, why isn't there more ocean exploration going on? Like when I was in college, I took an oceanography class and it was fascinating. I had so much fun in it. But is it thought that, okay, we've kind of conquered it, we've gone down to the bottom? Well, only relatively recently have they gone all the way down to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. I think that was James Cameron that did that, which was really freaky. It's hard to think about. I don't want to wrap my head around it because it seems very claustrophobic. But I don't know. It's like, were people like, oh, we hit the bottom, we're done? Because to me, there's so many other things to explore and that we don't understand about the ocean. Like, how do we know that there aren't cave systems? If you want to go back to what we spoke about last week with the hollow earth theory, how do we know that the cave systems aren't leading to different parts of the ocean? I don't know. So the Muslims walk in a circle around Kaaba and Mecca that has a piece of an extraterrestrial object. Oh, I've seen the pictures of that happening in Mecca, but I didn't realize it was an extraterrestrial object. Now, was it an asteroid? That's interesting. So does that make them, so we said that Mormonism is kind of a space-based religion in a way. So does that kind of make Islam the same thing? And I know it's not exactly because it branches off from was it Ishmael? Ishmael's bloodline in the Old Testament. Um, but did they eventually end up adopting some space theology too? Oh, that's something I have to look into. That's really interesting. Okay, so here's the statistic. Less than 5% of the ocean has been explored. So we call, space, I guess, or Star Trek calls space the final frontier. But here we are with an ocean that's pretty unexplored. And if you want to talk about funding, oh, there's not enough funding to explore space or whatever, which is a whole other story. Got a lot of things to say about that. But what about sea exploration? Because we have the things for it. We have the vehicles. Yes, I'm sure they cost money to man, but it's a lot cheaper. So why not go, why not do a little bit more exploration? But that's just me. I guess, I like movies and stories like The Abyss and Sphere and the whole concept of having like these underwater bases. I think that's so cool. And I don't understand why we're not doing more with that. But I forget who brought it up. Was it Crypto Heartbeat that was saying that the some of the astronauts had claimed that they were told not to return to the moon anymore? So is it that something like that with the ocean? Did somebody see something where they warned not to go exploring anymore? Because I don't understand why there's not a bigger push for the ocean, because it's fascinating. Okay, here's an interesting theory. So the aliens could be from the ocean. There's even an old PC strategy game, XCOM, about it. Oh, I've heard of XCOM because I saw that they released it on the Switch now, and I saw, that there's an alien on it, but I had no idea that it was aliens from the ocean. Imagine if we have a whole species, some other species that's a terrestrial species that's living in the ocean. Um, Unless that's why nobody explores it, don't come back to the ocean, leave us alone. Well, the this and I always forget the other one that's not Atlantis. Atlantis and the other one, right? Uh, Supposedly they sunk, but what if they're somehow surviving underwater, in a hollow earth type situation? Um, you know, what's going on with that? Oh, so there's a new movie like The Abyss. Oh, is that one with was this Kristen Stewart, Underwater? I bought it, but I didn't get to watch it yet. But I love underwater movies. Um, so okay, Life. Yeah, Life was a good one too. I did enjoy it, but I think I like The Abyss a lot better. The director's cut. What is it, like 3 hours, 3.5 hours? Sphere is fun too, but not as good as The Abyss. So the Baalbek ruins in Lebanon are mind-blowing. No one can explain who made them or how old they are. I've never heard of these ruins. It's interesting because it says Baalbek. So does this have to do with the pagan god Baal? So I'm writing this down. Baalbek in Lebanon. And no one can explain it. There's so much of this where nobody can explain a lot of these ruins, which I guess comes back to the whole ideas of Tartaria. A lot of this old tech that was supposedly, or these massive, beautiful old buildings were built in the 17 or 1800s, and that were supposedly only built in a few years. And you look at it and you say, well, we can hardly build something like that now in the same span of time. How are they building it back then? Maybe these were older ruins from an older civilization that were that we moved into and adopted as our own somehow. So there's so much of that happening. There's so many unexplained ruins. But then I wonder, is it unexplained, or do they know the answer? Is there an explanation and it's just being held back from us, and that goes back to what we talked about when the Vatican archives, those Egyptian archives that no one is allowed access to. And you know what? The Library at Alexandria, when it was burned down, maybe it was burned down for a reason. Was somebody trying to hide something from us? Because the more information you take from a society, the more control you exert over that, right? You see it happening every day. So Mango Junkie says you're an alien freak. You watch Alien or Aliens usually once a week. You know what? I love that franchise. I am obsessed with it. But you definitely have me beat because I don't watch it that much. But much respect to you. You know what? totally random, but I have to say, did you ever see when they, speaking of being an alien freak, when they I don't know if it's a re-release, but they released those same Reeboks that Ripley wears in Aliens. I love that. It's amazing. I wanted to get my hands on it, but they never, I don't think they made them in my size. It's a bummer, but that was a tangent. So the sequel to XCOM is about the aliens from the ocean after getting rid of the ones from Mars. Okay. And again, sci-fi inspired from things in real life. It makes you wonder sometimes. Okay, so Underwater was the movie you were talking about. Okay, so there's The Abyss, there's Sphere, there's Underwater. Is Leviathan? Isn't that a movie? An underwater movie? There aren't too many in that genre. See, I wish there were a lot more. Like we have a lot of space movies. We have alien abduction movies. Where's all the good underwater movies? We need more of those. It sucks with all that ancient history, how they're in a lot of war-torn areas that can't be excavated or explored. Is that on purpose? Are the conflicts in this area on purpose because, the area is so rich in history and information? Or is it just by chance? But I get what you're saying. It's sad because a lot of these end up, besides not being able to go in and excavate it and explore it, a lot of things end up damaged in the whole, all the fighting that does happen. So Carl Monk talks about Egyptology found around the world. So when you look at the Egyptian, well, not ruins, like in the pyramids, have you ever seen where they have found things that look like light bulbs and batteries in there? There's all this kind of proof of ancient Egyptian technology, even the pyramids. There's always that debate of how was it built? Did they just find a really good way to work with levers and whatever tools that they had at the time? Or, were they able to somehow use magnetism to raise the stuff kind of like a maglev train or something? So when you look at that, if you look at Egyptian technology through that lens, instead of like, oh wow, they found some cool ancient techniques that work, and you look at it through the lens of, oh, maybe they were more advanced than we thought. When you start thinking about it like that, you think, well, maybe they did explore the world. I mean, they say that the Vikings were in North America long before Columbus, and and if you look at like historical recreations of Viking ships, they weren't that technologically advanced. I'm sure they were kind of similar to Egyptian ships in technology. So if the Vikings could get to North America, yes, given they were, a little closer, but if the Vikings could, why couldn't other civilizations make it to North America? And the Egyptians accomplished so much with their architecture. Who knows what else they were able to accomplish? Why wouldn't they be able to travel to America and kind of do some settlements here? And then if that was the case, why is that information held back from us? It's weird. It kind of sends you in a whole brain loop. So, hey, completion fails. Nice to see you. So, bastards in the Vatican are hiding so much knowledge. I have to say, Catholics, I love you. And I know I've said this before, but your Pope, the Vatican, freaks me out. Kind of freaky. It's got I think there's some definite corruption at the top happening. And then when you start thinking about what potentially happens in Vatican City, even the design, the architecture of Vatican City seems kind of intentional, very symbolic. And then there's so much talk of the Vatican archives. And something is like a rumor or myth. I mean, doesn't it kind of eventually dive down and people think it's a joke? But people are so intent there's a Vatican archives happening. And what's up with the Vatican? Why are they holding back this information? And it comes back to control. And then if you want to get into the bigger bubble, okay, so are they like kind of linked to those ruling families of the world? How are they tied in? But I do love pondering the Vatican archives. But the national treasure. How come people just don't break into the Vatican archives? But maybe they do, and we just don't hear about it because they're dead. Nemo. I don't know what you mean by Nemo. Maybe I missed something. Imagine what might be under the Sahara Desert. Well, the Sahara Desert's spreading, right? So it wasn't always that big. So what's under all that sand? Yeah, what civilizations might be covered and buried? What kind of climates might have been under there? Is there talk about is this just are you just throwing it out there like, "Oh, imagine what's under the Sahara Desert," or do people actually talk about it and think there might be something going on under there years ago, like, ancient civilizations? In Africa having some of the earliest civilizations in the world, um, I think there's a lot of hidden knowledge happening in Africa. Um, I don't want to say plain sight, but take Ethiopia. I think Ethiopia is just incredible, the links that it has to biblical history. And then the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Um, wasn't Ethiopia linked to Solomon? And isn't there a belief that the Ark of the Covenant was given from Solomon to somebody in Ethiopia, and and that it might exist there to this day? I remember in college, I went to a college that was very international. I was one of the few people from the area who went to the school, one of the few locals. And I remember chatting with kids from Ethiopia and talking about this. And they were like intent. They were, oh no, it was somebody else Ethiopian I was talking about. Ethiopian I met in a mall another time. But my school, I did have some really wonderful conversations with the Ethiopian students talking about the Ethiopian Christian history in Africa, which is just incredible. I love it. But I remember meeting another Ethiopian man actually in a mall, and we started talking about Ethiopian Christian orthodoxy and the history of that and how the Ark of the Covenant ended up there. And now he was intent. He's like, no, it totally is here, and everybody knows it. Yep, that's real. That's legit. So Ethiopian history is something I would love to dive into, because when we talk about hidden history, I don't mean that the Ethiopian church is holding it back from everybody. I think it's like in plain sight, in plain knowledge there. A lot of these secret things, quote unquote secret, this hidden history and hidden knowledge. I think it's pretty out in the open there. But because the Ethiopian Orthodox Church isn't like as well known, as like maybe like let's say the Russian Orthodox Church, people, I don't want to say discount it, but I don't think they realize the wealth of knowledge and history there, and how much like for example, when we talk about the book of Enoch, the Ethiopian church has its own translation of the book of Enoch, and they actually like hold it as part of the Bible. They're not saying, oh, this is the separate thing that might actually be a part of it. They're like, no, this is legit. So I'm like, there's something going on in that church in a good way, that they have it and they're not hiding the knowledge, that it's open. So I think, I don't know, that would be something pretty cool to dive into. Maybe I could find somebody to talk to about that. So sorry, that was kind of all over the place, but I'm just kind of remembering it and piecing it together as I'm speaking to you all. So Tin Top says, I think the ancients were way more advanced than we know. It's sort of like the movie Idiocracy, but in sandals. I've never seen Idiocracy, but I keep seeing clips from it. So I really need to see it. But no, definitely. I think that they were so advanced. And when we talk about a great reset, of course, right now, when we're talking about the Great Reset, we talk about the WEF's plan, and they call it the Great Reset. But they say that Earth has been through a bunch of great resets where a bunch of great civilizations have died off. And, we know that happens through history. Oh, the Roman Empire is gone. The Greek civilization is gone. But not those kind of resets, that there were like as technologically advanced as we are today, that there were other civilizations possibly even more advanced than us, and for some reason throughout history just great resets happen and then wipe the slate clean, and then you're starting over again and building from the bottom. So I think, yeah, I think it's totally plausible that we've had other civilizations that were just constantly wiped in great resets, and we're kind of starting from zero when it comes to tech. Which I have a Game of Thrones theory about that, but I'm going to hold it back for now. Because I don't want spoilers, because I never finished the last season, even though I heard how it went, and I haven't read the books. Okay, but I'll throw it in there. Unless this was already revealed in the show. Like I said, I haven't seen the last season, but I can't help but wonder if Game of Thrones, how it's supposed to be like, oh, some like mythical land, and this is But I'm like, what if it takes place in one of the older civilizations that were wiped in a Great Reset? So this is like really, really long time ago, and Great Reset happened, and kind of, and we started over from zero over and over again. So that's my theory about Game of Thrones, but I'll leave it there. So the Great Pyramids were basically under the sand until they dug them up. And the pyramids might have been power plants. Well, I know that a lot of people talk about the shape of the pyramid. Like there's a lot of New Agers that say that there's power in the shape, and this kind of, I don't want to say woo-woo in a disrespectful way, but that type of that the crystals have power and the shape of the pyramid has power. I'm not too into that, so I can't speak for that. That's not my thing. Nor am I interested in that. But okay, but let's take it out of that new age context, and let's put it into some sort of technological context. Okay, yeah, maybe it was a power plant, because it does have chambers inside. So what if the chambers inside were all acting as kind of like a battery? Because doesn't a battery kind of have its own like patterns and chambers and everything? So yeah, what if what we think are burial chambers are just like different battery chambers? And then they eventually, when those power plants ran out, they're like, okay, let's repurpose it. Because that's what I find wild. Why isn't, they're like, there's all these secrets to the pyramids. Well, I'm like, well, why don't they go in and explore it? And some people want to argue, well, they're respecting the dead. Listen, all these explorers have never really respected the dead at first. So I'm supposed to believe that now all of a sudden they are. But yeah, what if the pyramids were a big battery? Well, there's also the thought that there's these structures, I think, throughout the earth that look almost like, I forget, they're like coordinated in very specific ways. I don't know if it's called ley lines, but there's these feet that they look like that they used to be feet for massive structures. But there's this school of thought that says that, oh yes, they were feet for massive structures, but they were massive power structures. And which comes back to the whole thing of free energy. And if you believe that Nikola Tesla was real, because I've heard that there's some debate whether he was legit or not. But if he was real and he was trying to capture free energy, maybe he was just going back into and using the same tech that they were using before. So it really is this like rabbit hole that you go into in your brain. So yeah, imagine what's under the Sahara Desert. You know what? I never thought about that. But now you're gonna keep me awake at night thinking. Sorry, I'm catching up on my messages now, or the chat now. Yeah, exactly. So obvious with the governments of the world stopping modern exploration there. Like if we really were interested in advancing civilization, in advancing technology, in advancing like just knowledge and study, they would say, go for it. Yeah, sorry, we can't fund it, but you're welcome to figure it out yourself. So why is there this holding back of people? There's not encouraging. Like back in like, I don't know, like the 1300s, the 1400s, they were encouraging people to go out and explore. Like all those explorers in the past, I forget their names, right? That they were just sent out by the kings and queens to go explore the world and cross the ocean and see, what was on the other side of this body of water. Like they were encouraged back then. And all of a sudden, nobody's encouraging anything. Like even when you look at private space exploration, yeah, there's some partnerships that happen. There's some contracts that happen. But for the most part, it doesn't seem like it's that explored. And even if you want to talk about NASA, love or hate NASA. Sorry, I have to fix this. Wait, let's let it focus again because it's annoying me. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Sometimes this focuses it. There we go. Even if we look at NASA and its budget, like there's so much waste in the government. If the government was truly interested in exploration, they would tighten their belts and they would put that into NASA. And I know there's a lot of thoughts about whether NASA sucks or whether it doesn't. But if there's no interest in exploration, is it because exploration doesn't make money? No. I mean, if let's say that you're out exploring in space and then you find all these valuable minerals that we believe are out in space, there would be money to be made on that. But there's something, there's something that they're stopping modern exploration. And the question is why? And I think because the more we explore, then the more we realize that the narrative we were fed wasn't real. And then when we start wondering why we were fed a fake narrative, we start seeing we start unwinding the spools, that were weaved by the government, as a form of control. Because if you're not giving somebody the full amount of information, it's like control. Like, and okay, and this might be kind of a weird example, but like when a parent doesn't give a kid a ton of information, like how sometimes you only give a kid just enough. And I don't want to say it's a form of control, but they're too young, they're not ready, for whatever this information is that you want to give them, and you hold other things back and you give them just a little, right? It's kind of parental controls being in place, right? So holding back knowledge is a form of control. And then if you want to look further into it, is it that they don't want us to have, let's say, faith? Sometimes I wonder if it's a faith thing. Like, because, we know what my faith is, how I look at the lens of the world. So let's say they don't want people believing in a faith, because religion is the opiate of the masses, right? Let's say that. If they were to hold back info and let you think that it's kind of a myth and just let you be, then people will doubt. But all of a sudden, if people are getting, let's say, into the Vatican archives or getting into Egyptian archives, and these things are corroborating the Bible, then they kind of lose control. They lose their narrative, and that people are kind of freeing themselves through religion, and they don't want that. So I'm kind of going through a bunch of threads, a bunch of rabbit holes at once, but that's just one of my thoughts. So, Atlantis in the Sahara, the amazing rich hat structure. Okay, I'm writing this down. I've never heard of this. See, I never thought that the Sahara was the Sahara. Sorry, like I said, too much time in the sun today. Was anything more than just the desert. So, but I guess it makes sense because nothing on earth is just what it seems, right? There's always more to the story. So I just, I'm just like, oh, it's a desert and it's spreading, and for, I don't know, just through natural processes of climate. But yeah, now when you say that, what is under these deserts? Just like somebody had said before, the pyramids were buried, right? And they kind of eventually had to dig them out. So what might be buried in the Sahara? Is this going to be like one of our Hex expeditions when Pulse launches? Did you see the recent video a year ago where somebody, maybe deserts of Saudi Arabia, got huge rains and life just sprouted out of the sand in a day? Okay, so I know that's directed at Tin Top, but this has caught my attention. I didn't hear about this, but I guess it shows that there's so much more life in the desert than what it seems. Idiocracy is hilarious. I have to watch it. I feel like I own that movie, but I'm not sure. Because I used to buy things digitally and never watch them. So now I have to look through my digital library. But I hear a lot of people talking about how relevant it is. And I think the Alamo Drafthouse has like had an Idiocracy movie party because it's getting like more and more relevant in society. So, hey, 369, nice to see you. Thanks, guys, for coming back. I really appreciate it. Okay, to order a pizza or not, it's the weekend. Go for it. I'm always going to say go for pizza. The scale might not like it for me, but for you, I say go for it. Though I did have takeout today. I was bad. Yeah, it's Saturday. Have your pizza. Have your cake and eat it. Have your pizza and eat it. So I heard pyramids were chemical manufacturing facilities, pumped water in, started a reaction, and limestone between upper and lower chambers acted like a giant separation funnel. Yeah. I mean, you know what? If you look at, again, it comes back to that whole battery thing. If you look at the maps of the insides of pyramids, it doesn't look like just chambers. Like those are organized in a certain way. And I know they like to tell us, oh, it's organized in a certain way because they believe their spirits moved in a certain way and that they needed a way to exit. But, and again, is that a narrative being fed to us, or was that just the mistake of the Egyptologist? Because when you look at those chambers, it does look like something very specific. It does look like it was some sort of electrical engineering or chemical engineering happening. There's so much more to it. And I'm wondering now if yes, the pyramids did serve some other function, and maybe the pharaohs are buried in it because they were so into these pyramids, maybe they ended up worshiping them and they're like, bury me in there. I love this thing. It's amazing. It's a gift from our gods. Put me in there. Or once it was done and it outlived its usage. They're like, all right, let's repurpose it as a burial facility. I don't know. It makes you wonder. Mm. An attack on faith. Yeah, there truly is. And I'm not just saying one faith. It seems like there's an attack on all faiths across the board. And you have to wonder why they don't want us to believe. Because my views, I tend to be like very libertarian in my views. I'm very wary of any type of, intervention that doesn't leave us alone. And I feel like if you look throughout history, there's very few good things that governments have done for their people. So when we look at the fact that there's a push there seems to be like an attack on all faiths from the government, that there's a reason they don't want people believing. They want a very secular society. And then when we stop and look at that, we have to wonder why. Is it for our own good? Just like, I guess, the Karl Marx thing, religion is the opiate of the masses. Do they want us to expand our mind? But then, looking at the history of all governments in the world, because they all suck. No, right? They don't do anything for our benefit. So if they're trying to push for something, it kind of makes you want to do the opposite. So because they never want to do anything that'll help people. Okay, so if they don't want religion, then what about the opposite? What's true of the opposite? Then religion must be good. There must be something going on there that they don't want us to have it. Just like, relating it back to Pulse and Hex coin and everything, there's a huge push against cryptocurrency from the powers that be, from these big names. Why are they pushing against it? Because in cryptocurrency, like we've said, it's the biggest transfer of wealth from the elites to regular people. So if we look at that, right, they're pushing against it. See, because they don't want what's good for us, what's going to help us. So then we have to kind of look at the opposite and be like, okay, so that's what they want. So there's something valid happening in the opposite. So I don't know, kind of all over the place with that. But it's a new RH interview coming up with Michaela Peterson, 200,000 Twitter followers. Okay, that's cool. I don't know who that is, but it's a nice following. Hopefully fuel some more adoption out there. Hex Alchemist says the whole society we live in was designed to keep the big secrets from us. I agree. But I wonder, was every society in history always keeping the secrets from them? Or is it just our modern society? And what's also wild is it's not just the American government. It's every government. Why are they all partnered with this? So that's why, like I said, I'm so fascinated with Ethiopia that, they don't seem to be holding back info from their people. And why are people discounting that? People should be paying a lot more attention to that. Sorry, guys, I'm going to open up a can of soda. It's got no sugar in it. It's stevia. So I'm still being kind of good. And Michaela Peterson has 500,000 subs. Okay, that's cool. He's getting some big interviews. And isn't Business Insider and everything talking about him too? So this is getting exciting ahead of Pulse Chain. Side note, why don't you put your Pulse Chain release date predictions in the comments? I'm curious what everyone has to say, because I have no idea. Maybe early June. I don't even know what to think anymore. But anyway, because faith causes ease and good vibes, but those evil in power want us in fear and vibrations low. You know what? I'm totally with you. There's a constant push for fear. Some people think because evil feeds off of fear, so you're kind of just fueling them, like that's their gasoline. But no, if you look at history, there always seems to be a push toward fear, and governments have always been like, oh no, but we're fixing it, we're making it better. But then it's just one thing after the other, and it's like, okay, is that just the state of living in a fallen world? But it seems intentional, especially when we look at everything now and we can share information between countries. With the internet they didn't have back then, you see that there's a constant push, there's a constant narrative happening. And you know what? Constant fear and stress leads to illness. So maybe it's just a way to make people sick and die, a little faster. So the Creation Seminar by Kent Hovind is an amazing set of videos with evidence. We are taught the people of 5,000 years ago were dumb. Actually, they were super smart. Yeah, I think so, because I had never thought too much about it, but Bobby Hexelrod sent me an audiobook I believe it's called The 12th Kingdom, by, I think, Zachariah Sitchin. And it talks about these ancient civilizations and, and their contact with aliens and how they kind of created the world. And like I said, I don't take I don't take that mindset. But I was so fascinated by the history of that. I really, so if you're listening, Bobby, thank you so much for the book. Like, like even though I didn't agree with it, a lot of the historical connections really kind of opened my eyes, because when we're talking about these ancient societies and the technology they had, I never realized how intelligent they were and so advanced they were. And the thing was, I never thought they were dumb, but I just thought, like, okay, maybe they don't know as much as we do now, because they were still figuring out things. But there were certain systems, like their number counting systems, these ancient early civilizations in the Middle East, they say are more advanced than the ones we're currently using. I think it's like a base 12 system or a base 60 system. And just to think that 5,000 years ago, they were so on the ball and so on point for so many things. And, Zachariah Sitchin uses that to kind of further his belief that, oh, well, all this information was given to them by the aliens. But I'm like, maybe we're not giving enough credit where credit's due. Again, people, okay, people might act dumb now, but people were pretty brilliant back then when you think about like some of the tech that came out of that era. So I don't know. I love it. And so this is new to me. I'm so fascinated by it. And I'm just kind of ranting and rambling about it because I'm putting it all together in my head lately. And I love it. So The Creation Seminar by Kent Hovind. Okay. So I'm going to put that down for myself. So I'm always jotting stuff because I love these recommendations you guys give me. So they want religion, because take Iran. Okay, yeah, that there are theocracies in some part of the world. Sure, that's true. But as a whole, there's a push toward secularism. And Iran is kind of, the Middle Eastern countries are an outlier. And I understand that there's a lot of bad things that happen in theocracies and a lot of injustices, in those Middle Eastern democracies. And American governments, European governments talk about wanting to go in and, like, I don't know, these wars that they've done in the Middle East to liberate them or whatever. And I'm very suspicious of them, especially recently. I've heard things like they really demonize Iran and what happens there and the theocracy that's going on. And I agree that there's a lot of unfair things that happen in Iran, and it's unfortunate. There's a lot of gender issues happening down there. But I'm like, are they being demonized more than necessary? Because I've heard that Iran actually has a bank, its own banking system that exists outside of the World Bank. And the rest of the world doesn't like that. So people believe that there's this demonization of Iran because of this that they found a way to exist outside the world banking system, and the elites don't like that. And there's also the belief that Gaddafi, is it Muammar Gaddafi, the Libyan president who was murdered under the Obama administration, that they took him out because he decided he wanted to unify the continent of Africa and have Africa have its own monetary system based on gold. So, back to that, was he a bad guy? Yes, I'm sure he did bad things. Or did they demonize him because he was thinking outside of the box and kind of pulling himself outside of that circle, that influence of the elites? Okay, so don't demonize sugar. It's the best. My stevia. And I got my stevia in here. It's a little toxic. I'm of that belief that, not too much sugar. I mean, I shouldn't be having stevia either, but it's the weekend. Okay, so Mango Junkie, your pulse prediction is May 26th. Okay. The captain says May 25th. Ooh, that's close. I was gonna, I don't know why June 6th is popping into my head. I just don't think it's going to happen in May anymore. And I'm getting nervous because I'm like, is it even going to happen in June? I'm getting antsy, I know no expectations, but I want to see what happens with it. This is exciting. You drink tea with real sugar, or hot tea with cane sugar when it's cold, and organic cane sugar for the win. Yeah, I've heard that, you know what, if you're going to have sugar, you might as well have organic cane sugar. Though I've heard coconut sugar isn't too bad. But like, no, definitely, I'm not a believer in high fructose corn syrup. But yeah, it's nice to have a little zero cal soda. But also, like, when you're, um, sorry, because I realized I could just totally spark a whole debate about calories and counting calories, but I'm not going to get into that. But sorry, we're out of focus again. But so I am all over the place today. I'm so drained, but I'm having fun with you guys tonight. But when you don't have, when you stay away from sugar that long, it kind of gets nauseating. So now I don't even think I could drink a soda with actual sugar. Like, I've gotten so used to the taste of stevia. But I know stevia, the way they process it could be kind of toxic. So I really should stop with the stevia. But right now, that's my preference to sugar. Like, if I'm having a craving, it kind of satiates it. Coconut sugar? Yuck, coconut sugar. I don't, I feel like I've tried it and I didn't mind it, but I like stuff that comes from coconuts. So, bum rush. What do you mean, bum rush? Is that is that a pulse prediction? In ducks? I like ducks. I want to have ducks. Okay, so faith equals righteousness. Righteous people don't need leaders. They are leaders. Exactly. There you go. I think you hit it right on the nose there. You know, and I think that's where, you know, the demonization of religious things come from. And again, like, when I say religious things, I'm not talking about one faith. I am talking about all of them, that there's a push to kind of just erase it and make us a secular society. Because it's true, because then we break out from the quote unquote matrix. We free ourselves because we're like, you know what? We're not, there's more to this life than just earth and its leaders in it. Yeah, so, you know, religious people take on a different perspective, and I think that they're more willing to challenge, you know, control narratives and oppression and things that happen. And these people in control, the powers that be, you know, they don't want that. So there we go. I don't think I can wrap it up any more than what you put it there. You just hit it on the nose with that. So I want to make sure I haven't missed anything else. Let's see. Don't count calories. Eat less fat and stay away from a lot of fried foods, and you're good. Yeah, no. You know, I know there's a ton of theories on it. Some people are like, it's what you eat and not exactly the calories. But then some people like, you know what, fat is good, and you can train your body to kind of burn off the fat. I'm of the mindset that I like a lot of protein. I don't know. I think it's good. I find that if I don't have a lot of protein, it affects my weight and that I crave the protein. I don't know. But fat is satiating. So, you know, if you do put a slice of cheese on a burger, if for some reason it satiates you, but I won't get off into a food rant because I do find nutrition fascinating and all the different ideas in it. And I love my protein shake every morning. So you can grow stevia. Oh, then I guess you would get rid of all that toxic processing. Oh, yeah, I think I've seen that plant before. Seems like too much work to grow my own stevia and process it. I should just quit stevia. Yes, like we were saying, yeah, fat is not bad. Just stay away from sugar and simple carbs. Well, there's that whole idea that cancer is fueled by sugar. And that if you, and you know, this kind of goes with the whole high strangeness thing, you know, like the government and everything, the food pyramid, when they're like, eat all these carbs and these groups and do everything like that. It's like, if we look at the food pyramid, that's not really a great way to eat. And, you know, is it to keep us sick? And because if you're sick and, you know, and you're tired and you're not motivated, are you going to be more compliant? Or, you know, like, you kind of just will fall into something where you let somebody lead and you're not going to question the narrative, you know, if you're fat, sick, and lazy. And you know what? The pharmaceutical industry and the government are together. So if you end up sick and you're a lifelong pharmaceutical consumer, you know, everybody profits off of you. So I think, yeah, I think we could talk a lot about the whole conspiracy of the food industry and maybe we'll save another show for that. The food industry and the diet industry and, the effort to keep us sick as a form of control. And I know I talk control a lot, but it's so funny because a lot of these narratives all come back to that. But yeah. So on the next episode of Food Strangeness, no, it's so true. You really could tie all this together. Everything, all these threads kind of all lead back to the same place once, right? Go for a run. Oh, are we arguing food stuff in here? But also, what's interesting for me? I find that my body's always shifting. So certain ways of eating that might have worked before for me 2 or 3 years ago now don't work the same. So you kind of have to adjust and listen to your body and go with it. But you know what? We're not taught that health and body intelligence anymore. It's just like kind of eat what you're told and do what your doctor says instead of just eating well and exercising and moving. Not saying don't go to doctors. Doctors have their place. But like that whole industry profits off keeping you sick. So you really have to look at your movement. You have to look at the way you eat. It all goes together. So high carb, low fat protein is debatable. Yeah, like for me, I cannot do high carbs. Carbs really affect me. Sugars really affect me. And it's interesting because turns out I was eating low fat for a while, and not because I was afraid of fat or avoiding it. I just wasn't into to foods that were fatty, the taste of it. And then now that I've put it back into the way I eat, I have to say my brain feels so good, feels so much clearer and so much more energized. I'm really amazed by it. So I've started adding a tablespoon of MCT oil into my protein shake every morning. And I have to say, wow, that just really sustains the energy levels of your brain. And actually, you know what? I didn't take any MCT oil today. So maybe that's why I'm also a little tired. The food pyramid should be upside down. You know what? The food pyramid just needs to be torn down. It needs to be reburied under the sand. Carbs for the win. Let's go for a run and see who lasts longer. Again, I think it all honestly, as a whole, there are certain things that we should be aware and we should stay away from. But I think just different things work for different bodies. I'm really starting to see that now. Truth, your body is 85% water. What doesn't mix with water? Fat in nature is a scarcity. You need very little fat in your diet. Whole food fats, not processed concentrate fat and oil. Yeah. Well, yeah, that does make a lot of sense. But I'm just saying that for me, all of a sudden lately, I've added, actually, natural fats in. I've added, the good fats, fats that are coming from meat, animal products. And I don't mean like I'm eating massive amounts of butter or ghee, but just, meats that I'm eating. And what else? Avocado. My brain just feels good. Like I said, we just all need certain things in our diet. So sorry, I'm just catching up on this. When lunch, I mean dinner. I'm hungry. I just ate. Like I said, I had takeout that wasn't so good. Oh, you're ordering a pizza right now. Okay. You know what? Like I said, it's Saturday. I'm glad you got your pizza. But it all comes back to the control of knowledge, food, money, politics, history. Because exactly. They want to feed, they want to just feed everyone the information. They do not want anybody to think for themselves. And there really is, if you look at everywhere, there's this push of it starts in the schools. And it's something that really bothered me when I was a teacher. When they talk to teaching for the test, like they like to say, oh no, teaching for the test, it's so terrible because, they're just worried about the test scores and they have to teach so that kids score in a certain way to make the school district look good. But I think it's a lot more nefarious than that. It's not about, they're not doing this just to make the school districts look good. If you teach in these very specific ways, you end up taking away free thought from children. And really, schools I find to be very oppressive environments. And I worked in some excellent schools, but it's just like if a kid thought different, if they thought outside of the box, even if the answer was acceptable, it's like you're forced to be like, yes, but you need to do it in this way. This is what's expected of you. Even though that answer might be brilliant, you have to say, no. but put it like this. And I think that really does clip a kid's wings, because then they start feeling like, oh no, that's wrong what I did. Or even kids who are just brilliant and do things differently, think differently. Like, schools do not, everybody learns different. And obviously schools cannot cater to every single kind of learning style, but a lot of kids end up suffering, and the schools unfortunately then put a certain narrative in the brain, like, it's rote memorization. And I'm not even talking conspiracy theories, but it's like a removal of free thought. Like, you see kids who just think differently and are like brilliant in the things that they could do, but because they're a little hyper, the kids, the teachers demonize them, and oh no, look, they're so ADD and this, and they're a problem. And and the kid adopts this mindset that they can't learn, that they're a problem kid. So yeah, it starts in the schools. There's this constant control of of the narrative and knowledge, and think in this way, and then it goes into everything else. Like you mentioned, money. Notice that nobody is taught proper financial literacy. And the things that you do get taught, it's like, oh no, there's good debt, go into good debt, get the school loans, do this, invest in these ways. And all of these things, if you look, you end up a slave to debt. And then your investments, you end up with these tiny gains. Like, what are people earning per year? Like 2%. Like, there's such small gains. You're never going to get rich. You're always going to end up one of these drone workers in the system through the methods that they're teaching. So there's another control of knowledge. Like, here's some financial knowledge, but it's going to be like this. It's nothing that's going to benefit you. Notice nobody's teaching crypto, and it's not because it's new. It's because it's good. It's because it doesn't fall in with their system. It comes back to like the kid who thinks outside of the box, and the teacher has to clip their wings. We're the people that are thinking outside of the box, and nobody likes that. They have to regulate that. They have to clip our wings. It's the control of knowledge, and back to the control of history. We realize that maybe the narratives we were fed aren't the right ones. Because if we look at history being taught in different countries around the world, I'm sure everybody has a different knowledge, narrative of the history. And isn't there that saying that history is written by the victors? So there's always going to be a bias in history, whether that's unintentional or whether it's intentional. It's just a fact of life. So, hey, Jennifer Hudson, nice to see you. Yeah, Robin, high fat, high protein works for you, and you feel shitty with a lot of carbs. Yeah, so like I said, we just have to find what works for our bodies. And again, the narrative that's pushed of one size fits all food does not work for everybody. But again, it's a control of knowledge. We let people do the wrong thing with their eating, then they become sick, they become compliant, they become lifelong pharmaceutical consumers, and everybody makes money off them, because you know what? They make money off of keeping you sick, not keeping you healthy. Yeah, no critical thinking in public schools. And I'm going to venture to say no critical thinking in private schools, because a lot of these private schools are pretty much have to follow the state curriculums and standards. There might be some variation, but they have to be very similar. So really, it's gone everywhere, unless you're educating your kid additionally outside of the public schools and outside of the private schools. But I think we're too far gone in any type of schooling, and we have to return back to unschooling and homeschooling. And I know that that's a hard thing for a lot of people, because people say that not everybody can make that work, not everybody can stay home with their children, but there are a lot of people that are finding ways to make it work, like a homeschool cooperative or a homeschool pod. Because really, when you look at homeschooled kids, and like I said, I used to be a teacher, so I've been around homeschooled kids, I've been around public school kids, I've been around private school kids. I really see the smartest kids coming out of homeschool situations, whether that be homeschooled by their own parents or homeschooled in a pod. And they're way more capable, they're way more social, and they have more skills than other kids, because you know what? They're not wasting time sitting in a school. They're getting their work done way faster so that they have time to learn other skills. It's pretty incredible. But there's a kind of, there's people like to say bad things about that and say, oh, look at these kids, they're so messed up from it. We have to step back and we have to look at why does everybody say these terrible things about homeschooled? Why is it not promoted? Oh, maybe because you're allowed to think outside of the box. You're thinking in different ways. You're not following a narrative that's being prescribed by a government. Because the thing is, again, if we say that all governments never do, when have they ever done anything good for the people? Well, why are you letting them educate your children too? And like I said, private schools aren't immune because, yes, even though they might be running on a different curriculum, for the most part, they have to hit certain state milestones. In certain, forget what they're called, not milestones, but they have to check off certain things in that state or national box. So smash that like. Thank you so much, and thank you all for coming, even though I forgot to tweet it out on Twitter, and I'm afraid to leave this tab because I'm like, if I go to Twitter, is this tab going to close? So thank you guys for sharing this on Twitter. I really appreciate it. Universities are the same, maybe worse. Yeah, I think it's all so far gone now. There's very few, because you know what, people need to realize that universities, people like to look at them as, oh, they're these bastions of learning and knowledge, and they're there to educate people and so further people's lives. No, universities are businesses. They're for-profit institutions. They're only there to take your money. Yeah, they'll teach you some stuff too, but I mean, is it really preparing you any better for the world? I went to one of the top colleges, or if you're outside of the US, uni, college, same thing, right? One of the top ones in the country. It was a great education, but you really look at it and you're like, okay, what is this prepared me for? I don't feel any more prepared. Yeah, I might be more knowledgeable in a lot of topics, but do I really feel prepared to go into this field that I've been majored in? It's because they're just there to make money off you, and they're making a lot of money, as we've seen with this school loan fiasco. So I'm going to catch up on this. When you do the food show, maybe research school milk programs, corruption at its finest. Oh, I never even thought about something nefarious going on with school milk. But that's interesting. I remember that I went to a Catholic school for part of my schooling. And I remember people would order ahead if they wanted the kid to have milk the whole school year. So now you have me wondering about it. And they would just nobody would take their milk. So I would drink it. Be like, you don't want it? I'm going to drink it. Not that I do something bad by drinking that milk. Lots of co-ops. Yeah. So I think way more homeschool co-ops are popping up. And I think COVID really made people realize that maybe the quality of education isn't as great as they thought it was. So I think people are now having those realizations. And I think they're saying that homeschooling is at an all-time high right now, which is pretty amazing. Van Halen, ring a bell? No. What about Van Halen? Because it's effective and not part of the system, homeschooling. Yeah, that's why there's the whole push against it. Because we have to be part of the system. Doesn't that go back to the Rockefellers? Didn't they design curriculum to make everybody compliant little drone worker bees? So it all kind of feeds into it. When you start pulling everything apart and really peeling away at the layers, it's really just all linked. Somebody keeps texting me, but I'm using my camera I'm using my phone as my camera, so I can't check it. But now I'm curious. Yeah, homeschooling is absent of conformity and assimilation. I'm with you on that. I am going to, again, open lines. I'm going to drop the link back in there if anyone wants to join me and chat about anything. So this is kind of all over the place tonight, but thank you for sticking with me. My brain feels all over the place tonight. Sorry, I just need to pull something up a second. So I get paranoid when I get so many texts coming in. Okay. I'm like, is something wrong? All right. So open lines tonight. If anyone wants to come in and chat, thank you guys for bearing with my brain being all over the place tonight. I'll probably try to, instead of just riffing, I want to try to get more guests into this. I like this format where we're kind of just going back and forth with each other, but I'd like to intersperse it with some high strangeness guests. So I definitely do have plans for that in the future. And I think summer is going to bring some interesting content because there's a ton of great, high strangeness and weird lectures and events going on. So maybe, I don't know, maybe if you guys know anything coming up, DM me in your area. Cause like, if you want to go and then come on here and talk about it, like if anyone wants to be on this, and you don't want to hop in during an open line time, just, DM me and we'll get you on here. I'm open to talking about whatever is strange. And I definitely do want to read that book. So if anyone wants to read, I haven't gotten it yet, but when I do, if anyone wants to read along with me, it is called Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. I believe if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read it for free. So Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, about the government programs that we're investigating Skinwalker Ranch. So I think it's very interesting that the government is aware and interested in what's going on at Skinwalker Ranch. So I think I might log off soon, very shortly. So I am so exhausted today. But yeah, had fun with you guys. Hey, Godfather J6. I'm late to the party. Got to catch up. Well, thank you all for being here today. Thanks for bearing with me as we were a little all over the place today. I definitely plan on being back next week. Our guest, who I talked about, who was going to come in and talk about cryptids, maybe he'll be able to join us next week. Something came up for him last minute, so but he is a Bigfoot investigator. I don't want to say his name yet because I want it to be a surprise, but he's a Bigfoot expert. And he travels the country hunting Bigfoot and has actually had some videos go viral. So because I am not as familiar, I'm more familiar with like UFOs and that type of high strangeness. Because I'm not familiar with cryptids, I am looking forward to having him in here and explaining a little bit about that phenomenon. So I am excited. I hope you guys join us when that happens. Hopefully next week. We'll see. Yes, you guys have a good night. I assigned 2 mods so far. If anybody else wants to help me out, I would love that. Just DM me. And yeah, have a good night. I will see you guys next week. And then hopefully I'll have another Adapter Get Wrecked episode this week. So, all right, keep in touch. Have a good night. And don't let the aliens bite. I'll see you guys. Bye. Mwah.